for joining the Washtenaw County Road Commission for our October the 6th virtual board meeting. Before we start the meeting, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Number one of which, if you would like to make public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting today from your touch-tone phone, you can virtually raise your hand by dialing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute participants with raised hands, one at a time. The chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as a technical support for users on their computer or smartphone. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our IT manager will help you troubleshoot the problem. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is posted on the wcroads.org, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer. You'll hold on just a moment. I will now call the meeting to order, and we'll go through a roll call of attendance. Currently speaking is the chairman of the Road Commission, Doug Fuller. Vice chair of the Road Commission, Barb Fuller.
Present.
Thank you. Member of the Road Commission, Rod Green.
Present.
Member Gloria Yamas is not yet with us.
She is, I'm sorry, Commissioner, she's working on joining us. She should be joining us very shortly. I can see her.
I'm present.
Fine, thank you. And
Present.
member Joanne McCollum.
Sorry, present.
Thank you. Managing Director Cheryl Siddell.
I'm here.
County Highway Engineer Matt McDonnell.
Present.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon.
Present.
And Director of Finance and IT Mr. Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you. Today, we will start our meeting with a moment of silence in memory of Zachary Morissette. On the 21st day of September of this year, Zach was working along I-94 in Macomb County when he was struck and killed by a motorist. Zach was an employee with the Macomb County Road Department and was 26 years old. Zach and all road workers face dangerous conditions every day to provide us with safe roads to travel. Please join me in a moment of silence in memory of Zach and all road workers who have been injured or killed while serving their communities. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to have a motion on the agenda, please.
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
I support.
The agenda has been moved and seconded. Those in favor of adopting the agenda will record their votes as I call their names. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Rod Green,
Yes.
Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you all. We have an agenda. We have three minutes to deal with, three sets of minutes that we have to deal with this afternoon. The first of which are the regular board meeting minutes of September the 15th, 2020, which starts on page 1 in your board packet. Could I have a motion on that set of minutes, please?
I motion to accept the board meeting minutes of September 15th, 2020.
I support.
Been moved and supported that we adopt those minutes as presented. However, that having been said, if there are additions, corrections, I said additions, or something that we've included that should not be there, please let me know that. Hearing no such motion, no such comments, we'll go ahead with approval of that motion. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes. Those minutes have been adopted. Next, starting on page 11 in your packet, are the working session minutes of the same date, in other words, September the 15th. Could I have a motion on those minutes, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the working session minutes of September 15th of 2020 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. As before, that motion was for the motions as presented. However, if there are additions or corrections or any other comments concerning those minutes, this would be the time to bring them up. Hearing none, Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCullum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fuller votes yes as well. Then we also have, and I believe everybody got a copy of this electronically, the closed session minutes for September the 15th, 2020. We will not discuss those. But I would like to have a motion to accept them.
I move that we accept the closed session minutes of September 15th, 2020, working session.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCullum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you. That dispenses, we have now accepted all the minutes that we needed to. Now we come to public comment. And this is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person that would like to address the board will be allocated 3 minutes to address the board. Emily, do we have anyone that has let you know they'd like to address us today?
This time, Commissioner, no.
Okay, thank you. We will then move on to written communications, which starts on page 14 in your packets. I have a couple of things I'd like to bring to everyone's attention, but I'll just open the floor to comments from any commissioner, please. Anything you'd like to particularly bring up?
I'd like to add my compliments to James and Sullivan for the speed with which they completed the old US 12 culvert replacement in Sylvan Township. There was a great deal of concern expressed by the township elected officials, residents, as well as their county commissioner. And it was an incredibly efficient operation that got that culvert replaced and the road back opened before absentee ballots were even being distributed, which was the big concern that the township hall access would be interfered with. So hats off to everybody, even those I did not mention by name, who made that project work with such efficiency.
I'd like to add to that. This is Commissioner Yamas. It was causing great angst for everyone, including people here on the road commission, but hats off to our team and how great they supervised that and kept it on track and ahead of schedule. I'm so proud of the team. I just want to repeat Barb's comments. So proud of the team.
I'll throw my hat in that ring as well. Gloria, you hit that right on the head. That took a team effort. And when a team is playing well together, and that one was, those are the kinds of results you get. That was absolutely a superb example of things coming together and being kept on track. So also my hats off to everyone that was involved. Anyone else have any comments at this point about written communications?
Well, I'd just like to mention that I thought the response from the chief of police for Eastern Michigan about the involvement of the Road Commission and the incident of the young man who was barricaded, I thought that was a yeoman's effort, and it was a great work on behalf of the entire community by the Road Commission.
Thank you, Rod. I was going to comment on that myself. That was indeed a very engaging thing to read. I have a question actually, or a comment that includes a question, I guess. There is in our packet a response from Jim Harmon to Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, who expressed concerns about flooding on their property. One is, Jim, I'd just like to comment that that is the very model of such a written communication. And I was just wondering basically if we've heard anything further from the Andersons.
Mr. Chair, I did receive an email back from Mr. Anderson. It wasn't requesting additional information. It was acknowledging receipt of my letter. He expressed his disagreement, which I appreciate. My hope is that at some point the community and the township would find a way forward to improve those roads in order to do a comprehensive investment in drainage, proper drainage, and have a road that's sustainable going forward. So the conversation, I felt, ended on a respectful note. If there's anything that we can do going forward with our modest routine maintenance, we certainly will do so, but we're fairly limited with the existing conditions that are out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. If everyone is ready to move on from written communications, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented, items 1 through 14.
I support.
It has been moved and supported. That requires a roll call vote. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
and Commissioner McCollum.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on from there to action items, of which we have 2. One of which is the Michigan County, the first of which is item number 1, is the Michigan County Road Commission Self-Insurance Pool Bylaws Amendment. I'd like to get that on the floor so we could discuss it if we feel the need. Could I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board hereby votes yes to amend Article 4, Section 2 of the Michigan County Road Commission Self-Insurance Pool Bylaws to allow a county that has assumed the powers, duties, and functions of its road commission under MCL 46.11S or MCL 224.65 to apply to become an associate member of the pool. Associate members shall not have voting rights, nor shall they be eligible to serve as directors on the pool board. Associate members shall be able to be determined by a 2/3 vote of the pool board.
I support.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Rod. Before we start any further conversation about that, since I'm a member of the McChrysip board, I'd like to comment that this is the beginning of what is officially thought to be a 5-year process. And actually the attorney that's in charge of the review of our work, of our bylaws, who's Mr. Alan Toontas, thinks we can actually get it done reasonably within 3 years, possibly even better. Mr. Toontas is a member of the firm Smith Hoy, who has been retained by the insurance pool to tend to a comprehensive review of the bylaws. But as a first step, he recommended to our board that we adopt this particular motion to allow for such members to apply to join. So with that, if there are further discussions, I'd be happy to hear them and answer any questions that I can.
I'll just note that I submitted concerns back mid-September about specific items in the bylaw changes, neither of which were addressed in this latest set. I have faith and confidence in the McChrysip board to attend to this with diligence and close scrutiny. And I got to tell you, 5 years to redo these bylaws seems outrageous to me.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to take 5 years. They're the two primary items that I want to highlight once again on the public record is that there's no provision in these bylaws for meetings by video conference, which I found odd given the circumstances we've been under for over 6 months now. And then the indemnification provision seems wildly broad to me. I mean, everybody except the hound dog is covered by this indemnification clause. And I'm not really interested in having our dollars be on the hook for that kind of indemnification. So I trust you, Commissioner Doug Fuller, to be on these things and question why 5 years to redo these bylaws. It doesn't look that complicated to me.
I would only comment, Barb, that the length of time has to do with the fact that there are other things going on, and this is not by any means a full-time charge. It is intended, or conversationally, the board wanted this to span the presidency, two terms of the presidency of the McChrysip organization, so that we would have more than one supervising eye at it. So that was one of the reasons why an extended period of time was thought to be appropriate. Your notes went the following day after you submitted them to me to Mr. Toontas. And he has assured me that each and every concern that you've listed in point of fact will be addressed during his review. Specifically to your last 2 points, that the remote meetings, that was simply something that, to be frank, I don't think any of our members other than perhaps myself, anticipate having remote meetings in 2 years. Mr. Toontas has assured me that he will bring this more than once to the attention of the entire board and see if there is interest in making allowances for remote meetings. Since the insurance pool is not covered under the same laws that road commissions are, he points out that it may, in point of fact, not even be necessary to have the bylaws. So,
What's the budget for his review of these bylaws?
Barb, I simply don't know. Reasonable question.
Okay,
Well, no, that
okay,
isn't-
enough. I've
yeah, that's fine.
been heard, thank you.
That's a reasonable question, and one that I'm making note of. With that, are there other concerns about this vote?
I don't have a concern. I just have a comment. I like what I read, why they're doing it. And to say in their own words, these outcomes put our members at risk for non-optimal judicial outcomes, which may later serve as undesirable precedents for their own future cases and lead to higher costs down the road. So I think that being proactive helps a lot. It helps the road commission, and it helps the people that support the road commission. So it looks like a good plan that they have here.
Thank you, Joanne. Anyone else like to make a comment?
I'd just like to add that it looks like a good proposal. It just makes sense.
Thank you, Rod. Gloria, you're the only person that hasn't added in. You want to add anything in, or should we vote?
We should vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes,
Commissioner Green,
Yes,
excuse me, Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum, Joanne?
You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Doug Fuller votes yes. So there we have that. So now if I could find what I did, there we go. Then we come to the Boland Corridor, Dexter, Chelsea Road right-of-way property exchange. Would someone like to read that motion so that we can consider it?
So what page is that on?
page 30.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I try to find these motions.
You're right.
I'll be glad to read that. I motion that upon the recommendation of the county highway engineer with concurrence of the managing director, the board hereby approves the conveyance of a portion of the Boland corridor adjacent to the tax parcel G-07-11-100-001 located in section 11 of Lima Township, more particularly described as Exhibit A, via quit claim deed to Felix de la Iglesia. In exchange for Felix de la Iglesia will grant a public road easement over a portion of the area described in Exhibit B to create a 60-foot half-width right-of-way for the future widening of Dexter Chelsea Road in Lima Township.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Managing Director, Cheryl, would you like to lead this discussion? Because I'd like to hear some.
Sure thing. This is consistent with how we've handled several other parcels along this corridor. We're in the specific area along Dexter Chelsea Road where we have the road, and then adjacent to the road is the Boland corridor. And then adjacent to the Bolin corridor is the actual parcel. So in some ways, that parcel is almost landlocked. And I know that we've had a lot of discussion about the Bolin itself and the different rights and things that we should be doing with respect to the Bolin. Since the rights associated with the Bolin have really varied parcel by parcel, what we have been doing with individual property owners as they've been coming forward with this situation is we've basically done a property exchange or a land swap, so to speak, with that property owner. So essentially, we are granting to them or conceding our rights with respect to the Bolin in exchange for a road easement along their frontage, and that clarifies everything along there. So it cleans it up. They now have access essentially to the Dexter-Chelsea Road right-of-way, and then we have retained our rights in that area for the basically the equivalent width of the Bolin, so that should there be any future widenings along Dexter-Chelsea Road, or we have any other needs along there in what would have previously been the Bolin, we've preserved our rights along there. And we have been doing that on a parcel by parcel basis as property owners have come forward. I don't know if there's anything that Matt or Kurt would like to add to that description.
Cheryl, I would like to add something briefly. The property owner, Felix, approached me and informed me that he was going through some title work. He recently listed his home for sale and ultimately discovered that on any future mortgages, the future property owner would ultimately have a hard time getting a mortgage because the mortgage companies would classify their parcels as being landlocked. So he did approach us to see how we may be able to resolve this, and then ultimately we looked back to how we had done it previously in a number of cases. This is exactly what we did, was to convey our quitclaim interest in receipt for a public road easement across nearly the same area. So it's created by the property owner. I'm sorry.
That's okay. As I was reading this, it should be quick claim, not quit claim. I just need clarification on that. It says QUIT claim. Is
That
it
is correct. It is quit with a T.
quit claim? Okay. Very good.
That is what we're doing, Gloria, is quitting our claim. So,
Okay.
and I certainly agree with the characterization that this is what we've been doing in the past along this corridor. It always personally concerns me that in this case, Mr. De La Iglesia ever got title to the property to start with. Why did he not know that during the title search when he acquired the property? That having been said, this is a way that we have discovered seems to satisfy everyone concerned. Kurt, I have a question for you. Is Mr. De La Iglesias' attorneys pleased with this particular outcome?
He has not been handling it through an attorney. His significant other
Okay.
for a title company. So I think she has some informal relationships with title company attorneys who've been reviewing the situation on behalf of Mr. De La Iglesia.
Okay.
But he's indicated throughout that he'd be willing to do whatever was necessary to be able to facilitate this conveyance.
Okay. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Nope, Cheryl and Kurt covered it well. It is a practice we've done in the past, and I think it resolves all parties' interest in a very nice way. And all these documents will get recorded at the Register of Deed, and then it will forever be memorialized when people do title work in the future.
Thank you.
Doug, I do have something to add.
Please.
The board may wonder why 60 feet. That is in fact the master right-of-way plan for Dexter-Chelsea Road, ultimately to be 120 feet of right-of-way, 60-foot half width. Much of it is currently 66 feet, but the road commission has standing master right-of-way policy, and that particular road is designated for 120 feet ultimately.
Thank you, Jim. With that, unless someone else has a comment, I'll call the question. We have a motion and it's been properly seconded. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. Thank you. Moving on to the report section. Do we have a county commissioner with us that would like to make any sort of report or comment at this point?
Commissioner, we had two county commissioners with us. Commissioner Schenk just sent me a message that she had to step out for another meeting. And she wanted to let us know that they at the county are working very hard to make sure that the local emergency orders that they're issuing from a county perspective are consistent with what we have been working on when it comes to the pandemic response. So she did have to step out. We do have Commissioner Jamnick as well, so I will ask her to unmute. Commissioner Jamnick, you should be able to unmute if you are with us still.
She may well have gone to the same meeting that Commissioner Schenk went to.
She may, yeah. So I think we can move on. If she raises her hand, I will let you know.
Thank you. Cheryl, well, let's do the road commissioners, I guess. County commissioner will go to road commissioners. And we'll start with Commissioner Barb Fuller. Anything you'd like to comment on, Barb?
On September 17th, I participated as a member of SEMCOG's Legislative Policy Committee meeting. The recommendations from that policy committee meeting will be forwarded to SEMCOG's General Assembly for consideration on October 15th. I expressed my compliments earlier about the old US 12 culvert replacement project, and I won't reiterate them at this time. I also want to compliment operations on the chip seal and the fog seal work that's been done. I'm very pleased with how those pavement markings are so clearly visible. It becomes real important out here in the country on those foggy mornings or those days when there's a dusting of snow on the road to be able to see where the heck the center line is, not to mention the fog lines so you don't get drawn off into the ditch. So it's been a wonderful improvement out here in the western part of the county. And I would hope that there's appreciation being expressed that extends beyond the frustration people express freely while the fog seal and chip seal operations are going on. It makes a huge difference out here. Thank you.
Rod?
Yes, sir. On the 17th of September, I attended, along with Matt McDonnell, a meeting of SEMCOG's Transportation Coordinating Committee. It was a rather spirited meeting. They had to do with rebuilding a portion of I-375 in downtown Detroit and how that project was going to take some money away from projects in Washtenaw County and other areas. So it was a rather spirited meeting. Ultimately, and of course I'm asking Matt to help me out in terms of any missing details, but ultimately they decided not to focus on the 375 project, so the projects in Washtenaw County and other areas are preserved to go forward, at least for the time being. Matt, you want to help me out with that?
Yeah, certainly. The I-375 project, very important to the city of Detroit, and I believe MDOT as well. It's a significant project that is still going through the environmental clearance as well. So it's not that the project isn't going to get done, it just is getting programmed for a later year outside the current tip. So they have to go through their environmental clearance, and get a finding of no significant impact on the preferred alternative. Once that's done, then you move into the design phase. And during the design phase, they're going to be needing to acquire quite a bit of right-of-way. And in that area, that's going to be a complex, long process to acquire the right-of-way necessary for the project. And for those reasons, MDOT was asking that the project be moved to a later date. And the city of Detroit certainly views that as a very high priority project and was concerned with the schedule and wanting it done sooner. But a project of that size and magnitude, I just don't see how that they could do it any faster.
Now, Matt, that was going to impact some projects in Washtenaw County that were planned, correct?
Yes, in theory, if they were to get through the environmental phase, purchase all the right of way, and somehow expedite the design and get it into construction for the current tip, it's fiscally constrained. So in order to accelerate that project, and it's going to be a very pricey project in the hundreds of millions, something else would have to not be done, and that could impact projects here in Washington County or in the region of SEMCOG.
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing about it was some were feeling as if it pitted various regions versus various regions. And of course, that goes against the spirit of SEMCOG, in which we're, are trying to work together. But the good news is, like Matt said, that project will at some point come about, just not right now.
May I ask a question of Commissioner Green, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Please.
Rod, tell us about the new executive director at SEMCOG.
Oh, that's correct. They're going to be honoring on October 15th the outgoing director, Kathleen Lamaco, after 40-odd years of service. So that's going to be held at the General Assembly meeting on SEMCOG on the 15th of October. I don't know anything about the new director, so I have to apologize on that note. But there will be a new director who will be taking over from Ms. Lamaco, who's done an outstanding job. So.
Amy O'Leary has been there for quite some time. She came up through the environmental program side of SEMCOG. And she's had quite a bit to do with whether it's been stormwater management, green infrastructure, low impact design, those types of standards and concepts. She's been a huge proponent through her career at SEMCOG, and then sort of worked her way up through SEMCOG. She's deputy director under Kathleen currently, and hopefully it looks like she'll be becoming the executive director once Kathleen retires. So they're in good hands with Amy at the helm.
Thank you.
And it looks like she was appointed on September 25th. So it's certain, it's not pending. Amy O'Leary. A new day at SEMCOG.
Thank you.
I have a question, Rod.
Yes, sir.
This 375 project has been talked about as long as I've been on this road commission,
Right.
for good, sufficient reasons. A number of years ago, meaning more than 5, there was even a move at that point, and I don't know where it originated from, but in open discussion at SEMCOG meetings was the removal of I-375 altogether.
That's correct.
So I'm wondering what happened to that particular idea, which I personally will confess I didn't think was a bad one. But anyway, what do you have been involved with SEMCOG longer than probably anybody in this agency other than Cheryl, who used to work at SEMCOG. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, you know, what they're really trying to do down there, as the way I understand it, is rewrite the history. As you may know, that stretch of I-375 was a historic African-American business district known as Paradise Valley. And a lot of businesses were destroyed when they came in with the project. So the hope was to kind of reenact history, take out 375, put some land back in there, put businesses back in there, kind of restore what history has already done. They wiped out that entire community, so it's kind of devastating financially to the African-American community. So in that respect, you know, there's a lot of emotions involved with that project. And those emotions, I think, came out during the meeting. So, you know, the city of Detroit is vested in it. They want to go forward with it. But, you know, it's just that it was going to impact so many other projects. It just got delayed. Well, you know, it wasn't going to happen right away anyway, either way. But it would have took some funds away from some important things that other communities are trying to do. But it will happen at some point, I believe. But there's a lot of history to it, a lot of negative history. Now they're trying to write some positive history into it.
The preferred alternative appears to be surface streets, correct, Rod? I mean, basically removal of 375 in its current configuration, and to your point, attempt to reestablish at least somewhat the road network that was there previously. So I do think that is still the overall concept, at least that they're trying to get environmental clearance on.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and in working through that environmental assessment, they're still working with the businesses, because as you can imagine, when you're going from a freeway to a surface street, there's going to have significant impacts on how you distribute traffic. And some of the businesses have concerns on how that's going to work. And overall, I think it's going to move forward. They just need to address those concerns in the environmental assessment. And MDOT did a very nice presentation. Kim Avery, which I believe works as the one of the engineers at the Detroit TSC. She may be the TSC manager, I believe. She did a great job. And they have a team that's dedicated to this project. They have a director at MDOT and Paul Adjuba that is supportive of this project, and they aren't going to lose sight of this project moving forward. I'm quite confident after hearing the presentation and the discussion from MDOT after the during the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure of Kim's current role. She was a TSC manager. She may be a bureau director at this point. So I think that it's got a lot of important eyes and support at MDOT. It's just timing at this point.
Thank you, Rod and Matt and Cheryl, for that insight, because that's a project that has been fraught, would be the actual term that I would use. And I think Rod brought that level of concern. So anyway, Gloria, do you have anything you'd like to bring forward?
Excuse me, on September 22nd, attended the McChrysson Hottest Topics training, which was very interesting. I was surprised. I thought I was going to be bored to death, I'll be honest. But it was very, very interesting, and I enjoyed it. And I look forward to doing more McChrysson trainings. I found it very, very interesting. And looking forward to, sounds like they're trying to do a convention coming up soon, how they're going to do that virtually or something, but I look forward to that also. It looks like a place for a wealth of information.
It is all of that.
Yes.
Thank you. And, you know, we have, editorialize here for just a moment. We have a requirement to have a annual meeting, and it has until 2020, it had always been in person. This year we had a carefully prepared, basically filmed presentation that our attorneys said would meet the requirements of its being our annual meeting. The board largely was not happy with having that remote circumstance. We'll see. I personally thought it went very well. I thought it conveyed the information that was necessary to our members, probably in a more succinct and manageable format. So I thought there was a lot of things to be said for it. Most of my fellow board members felt less warm and fuzzy about it than I, shall we say that. So, but yes, we'll see moving forward in what direction we move. So, anything else you'd like to comment on?
No, I think that I also watched or attended part of a meeting that was, I did like the format. To me, it allowed for things to be real succinct and organized. So I did enjoy that. I can't remember, I had to leave the meeting eventually before the meeting was over, but I did enjoy that and the conversation. And I understand there's a book for new commissioners that I've not seen that's from McChrysip's that they talked about putting together or that they had. And I haven't had an opportunity to look for that because life happens. So
okay, I happen to have a 3-ring binder in the commissioner's office that is not everything McChrysip, but it isn't written, as far as I know, specifically for the edification of new commissioners, but you are certainly welcome to have this book. I could, get it to you anyway.
okay. Well, I want to say that they spoke of one that they have just completed that they want to get out to as they, I don't know that it has come out, but they thought that it was very important for new commissioners. It sounded a lot like what Cheryl had put together for us, kind of an overview, but what they felt like was important that commissioners learn and needed, it sounded very useful. So I was waiting and I was going to do some communique with them.
If you don't mind, I'll make a couple of phone calls and see what I can find.
Awesome, thank you.
Joanne?
Yes, I have a report from the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec Commission. We have been working on the Stabler Farm Park North Development Master Plan. And there was a working session on September 29th, which I was sadly wasn't able to make. But prior to that, they wanted the commissioners to tour the park, which I was able to do on September 17th. I visited the Stabler Farms. I really like the Ironsmith setup that they have. The Michigan Folk School is responsible for that. And they set up a meadow project for participants. Not me, but people that wanted to come in and do that. I learned about Mr. Stabler and his many useful inventions to make farm living much easier. I used to pass by this farm for 10 years and didn't know all this was happening there. It wasn't a park then, but they were, Mr. Stabler was working his farm at the time. And it was very interesting to see the building, the house that he lived in, and all the creations he made. He made a shelf next to the fireplace where you can put the wood in from the outside and then close the door, and then you walk in and there's your wood. You don't have to carry it all through the house. And there was a plug in the ceiling, and we couldn't figure out what that was for, but it was probably for ironing, you know, plug up in the ceiling. So it was really, really nice to see that. And we are looking at the multi-purpose building, how that's going to be planned and put together and everything like that. But it's located at, if you have a chance, it's located on Plymouth Road, 7734 Plymouth Road. It's 98 acres, and it's a farm that is split. It's like Plymouth Road. It runs through the middle of this farm. So it works. And so that's what we're working on right now. On the 17th, I also attended the County Road Commission meeting, virtual meeting, and they talked about code of conduct, which I thought was interesting, road preservation, and shortfalls and highway trust funds. So that was a very informative meeting, and I was glad I was able to attend that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for Commissioner McCollum, if I may, please.
Yes.
What is the status of the $3.2 million projected budget for the multi-purpose building that you referred to?
I wasn't able to attend that 29th meeting, but the meeting prior to that, that's pending because of all what's happening now with the COVID and things like that. The board is not rushing into that choice right now. So that's tabled. That's been tabled, and I have to update you on what we'll be doing with that.
Thank you. It's a big price tag for a building that, in my opinion, has very limited utility.
Yeah, that's on hold right now.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to the next installment, Joanne.
Okay.
Okay, unless there are commissioners that have need to bring something else up, we'll move on to the staff reports. Cheryl?
Sure thing. Well, thank you to Commissioner Schenk, although she's not here, and I will say thank you to Commissioner Jamnick. We are very appreciative of the fact that the county did take action yesterday and issued the public health orders that basically mimic the previous executive orders that had been issued by Governor Whitmer, which does at least lend a little more certainty. We are in the process of looking at our preparedness and response plan, just making sure that it is current and up to date, but it's nice to know that those county orders are in place so that some of the questions that have come into play with the Supreme Court ruling that came down on Friday, that really does help. So staff is in the process of taking a look at that. MCRISP too has been very, very helpful actually throughout the pandemic, issuing various guidance based on the different executive orders and rulings that have come out. They also did provide a memo in light of the Supreme Court ruling, and again, following the state or county public health orders that would be coming out. But one of the notes that they had was that does also rescind the executive order with respect to virtual meetings, which is something that this body has certainly taken advantage of. At least in the opinion of Wendy Hart, who is of counsel for MCRISP. There is some question as to whether the decision from the Supreme Court had immediate effect or 21 days from the date that it was handed down. She is of the opinion that the 21 days does come into play so that we could continue to at least operate in a virtual format through October 23rd. So that does at least get us through the month of October in this current format. In that same light, staff has been looking at options for the boardroom with respect to should we start to hold in-person meetings or hybrid meetings and what that would look like and some of the technology associated and all of that. So just so you know, staff is well aware of the fact that we need to make those improvements regardless. We envision some form of that moving forward, period. But it may be here sooner rather than later, depending on the outcome of all the different things that have been taking place of late. In addition, I did share with the board that both the House bill and a Senate bill have been introduced at this point with respect to amending the Open Meetings Act, which would give permission to hold virtual meetings, which again is something that is has been a desire of the members of this board. I had offered and am happy to put a letter of support together and to send to our local elected officials in Lansing, both in the House and the Senate. Again, I think that's a tool that has worked well for not only for this board but also for the public. We may not have a lot of public with us here today, but we certainly have at times had people take advantage of the fact that this is yet another forum for them. So in the future, if we have a hybrid meeting where they can be both in person, and virtual, I think that just gives more flexibility, more transparency, more opportunity for public input, which I think is obviously one of the goals of the Open Meetings Act. So happy to put something like that together.
Cheryl,
Yes.
To that point, before we move away from it, would you have any objection if I did a little informal polling among board members?
Oh, please do.
Because I feel that such a letter from this organization would be useful. Commissioner Barb Fuller, would you agree?
Yes, I would.
Rod Green?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Gloria?
Yes.
And Joanne?
Yes.
Thank you. We are all in agreement on that. Cheryl, you can use that as however much guidance as you feel necessary.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Could I ask what is CRA doing with respect to those two bills?
I have not heard anything. I'd be more than happy to reach out and copy them on our letters. And certainly I think we've made it known. I know I've made it known to them, both Denise and Ed, our position on that. If they can lend support, and I know we have lobbyists through CRA, certainly I think that would be advantageous. I don't know that we should rely on that, but I think that we can certainly encourage and ask that they join us in that support.
Barb, I will also reach out to Ed and Denise myself.
Thank you. I think that's their job.
I would tend to agree. We are one county out of 83.
I understand that. It doesn't say that you have to have virtual meetings. It allows you to have virtual meetings.
Exactly.
Right. I believe that this is a tool that this organization has found helpful. It's not necessarily one that every organization wants to use, and we may not use it all the time, but I think that it is absolutely a tool, and having the ability and permission to do it, again, just gives us the greater ability to do our jobs.
Agreed.
I agree too. I through the chair, I have to say that organizations that I've been trying to encourage to use this have just not learned enough about the administrative portions of how to lock people out and how to run the MIA via Zoom, which is very helpful, so controlling who can come in and who can't come out and how to lock the meeting and all of that. But I've appreciated the ability to do this on many levels, and hopefully this will go forward.
And we are not alone. I know Emily's also been reaching out to her peers, the other communication managers at other road commissions specifically. So there are a handful of road commissions that are also doing this, and I think would also appreciate the ability to have it as an option for them moving forward.
And again, I want to emphasize that I'm interested in it being an option.
Yes.
I'd be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that there are areas where people actually are excluded from virtual meetings because they do not have the internet connectivity nor the data allowance to participate. I have to pick and choose what I do virtually for that very reason. So I support it being an option, not a mandate, and also want to remind everybody that there are those who are being left out and left behind because of the lack of broadband connectivity in this state.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the fact that we allow people to join via telephone is important, and that needs to be ensured that we broadcast that enough so that people know that if they cannot get on via internet, that they can indeed with their phone at least listen to what's going on. And that's an integral part that needs to stay and be an option.
Right, the call-in option is very important.
Agreed.
Barb, if I can put in something that I heard on the radio last night without getting too far out in the weeds, there was a segment on NPR about the inabilities, specifically of Native American people, where they live in geographically defined areas, i.e. reservations, that where internet is something that is a rumor from the outside. And that apparently exists even here in Michigan, which I was somewhat startled to find out. But I know of your interest in broadband or your efforts in broadband connectivity, and I had not personally considered the inability of Native American peoples living on tribal lands to not have access to the internet. It's one more piece of inequality within our civilization. So anyway, moving along, Cheryl.
All right, one other thing that I wanted to touch on before I handed it over to staff, and that is that Emily did just send out our Roads in Review, which is our newsletter. And there is one piece in there that I just wanted to promote in particular. As usual, I think that she did a great job, but specifically we have a bit in there about hiring. And specifically heavy truck drivers. So I would ask that anyone and everyone who has the ability to share that, please do so. We are desperately in need of qualified drivers at this point in time and would appreciate the efforts of anyone and everyone in spreading the word. Any questions for me before I hand it over to staff?
No, ma'am.
I would like to emphasize that as a commissioner, I take that responsibility pretty seriously, and I know there's concern about diversifying our workforce. So I think we all need to get creative in terms of how we share these job opportunities, who we reach out to. We can't just leave it to Nicole and Alicia and Cheryl and the organization to do that. We've got personal networks that we have a responsibility to tap to find new people to join the organization.
And I fully support Commissioner Barb Fuller's comments in our efforts to diversify the workforce. We've got to be more creative, I think, in terms of how we're doing this, but I certainly applaud everyone's efforts.
Great. Well, thank you. And like I said, there's a little blurb in there that I think is helpful as well. So it gives you the appropriate contacts. And of course, Nicole and I are always available. If you have any questions or need any additional information, we are more than happy to support that effort as well. All right, so if you don't have any further questions for me, Matt, I know that you included a department project list. If we want to start with you.
Yes, certainly. In your board packet on sheets, pages 92, 93, and 94, I just gave an updated list of projects for work that remains in 20, work that's going to be upcoming in 21, and then a couple of years out in 22 and 23. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on specific projects that may be of interest to you, and I can kind of describe where we're at and in greater detail the scope of work. But as you can see, the work we have that remains this year is still some work to be done. In fact, I believe the contractor was placing another culvert project on Moorville Road today, with plans to then move over to Pleasant Lake Road shortly thereafter, completing that project, and install another much needed culvert on a similar situation where we have a degraded existing culvert. We're looking to replace it on a primary road, and we'll be replacing it with a concrete box. It takes a little longer for assembly, delivery, and installation, but we have a competent contractor and a good team managing that project. So I expect similar results pending the weather holding. So any questions on that project list?
I have a question on a project. I confess I can't find it on that list. What can you tell me about Platte Road from conversationally Stony Creek south to the village, or to the city of Violent, excuse me?
That one is on our millage list.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So that one will be managed through our countywide contract. I know Jim and folks in the operations department are preparing that for bids, and certainly that is one that has been on the radar for some time, and we're very excited to be able to accomplish that through the millage.
Thank you.
It is 2022, unfortunately,
Yes.
just in having to spread projects out, it is 2022, so it's not next year, it'll be 2 years out.
Yeah, there was a couple of significant projects. Getty's was the other significant one that we've heard a lot about for many years, east of Dixboro. And then Platte was probably number 2 on that list. So unfortunately, we were fiscally constrained. We talked about that before with our millage dollars, and so that Platte Road ended up in 22. With that, I can certainly highlight another project that is on this list.
Please.
One that we wanted to just kind of bring you up to speed on where we're at in the process. I would like to start sharing my screen, so I think that will help in the conversation. So just one moment, I'll go ahead and share. Okay. You can just let me know if that you can see that.
There we
Okay,
go.
so this is the US 12 project in M17. This is one we're assisting Ypsilanti Township and MDOT in facilitating the improvements to be made. As you may be aware, about a year ago, we started on that endeavor where we were looking at alternatives and looking at options, and had some public engagement with the community. Significant amount of time went into that. Ultimately, it materialized into a little different outcome. The township, about first quarter of this year, and refined the option even further into what you see today on your screen. And they are moving forward with this option of an intersection improvement at M17 and US 12, and some improvements in the crossovers. Ultimately, this has been passed by the township board as a resolution wanting to move forward with this project. OHM Advisors, they are the engineer that we're working with, and they are have submitted base plans to MDOT for review and comment. They're working through some geometric comments right now. But ultimately, the plan is, in the project, again, scope area, I-94 to Wired, essentially, is the area that we were looking at and reviewing. Scope of work includes improving the intersection at M17 and US 12, removing the bridge that exists as a flyover for eastbound traffic. And I can zoom in a little more. That's a zoom in of that intersection, and a little bit the magenta pinkish purple is what new roadway will be reconfigured, and a little more standard T intersection here and T intersection here with new traffic signals. And then the X's represent the existing roadway that will be removed as part of the project. So there is opportunity for landscaping as well. OHM has been working with a township appointed group to see what the desires are for style and design, and they're getting feedback from the community and moving forward with a little more detailed design. But we've got to work out the geometry of the roadway first with MDOT, and then move a little more refined in the design of the landscaping. Ultimately, we'd like to see a 75% or GI package plan submitted to MDOT and reviewed this late fall, early winter, with the goal of bidding a contract out late winter for spring construction and for construction to occur throughout the summer to build what has been presented here. So it's a big endeavor, but one that OHM is doing a great job of putting together. And the township, we are working very closely with Brenda, her staff, and other township representatives to bring forward this impactful project that I think will do a good job of making some changes to improve the community here and access. So, any questions?
I do have some questions, and I forgot. I know we had talked about this, and you sent me some information, but if you can scroll where you can see Dorset Street.
Sure.
Okay, and then zone in on Dorset Avenue if you can.
Sure.
Yeah, so that street, I forgot what was happening there as far as the control of the traffic. Is there going to be a light? Are there going to be stop signs?
It will be stop controlled. There will not be a signal there. We will have signal right here.
Mhm.
So essentially, that intersection at M17 and US 12 is going to be moved further to the east and teed in, where they'll have signals here and here. And then ultimately, Dorset will come out where it is today. And the pedestrian crossing that exists there today will be moved over to where the new signalized intersection is.
So if I were leaving the area by Dorset and so the only way I could go when I leave Dorset is to go east, is to go right?
Correct. And then you would utilize this crossover to go westbound.
Okay. So
And
the
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the traffic coming west, so I wouldn't run into that traffic because I can only go east when I leave Dorset Avenue.
So the westbound traffic would also have to use the boulevard crossovers.
Okay, so there's two lanes there going. Are they both going east, or one is going
So
east and one is west?
this roadway here is what's called the service drive, and it
Oh,
connects.
that's right. Okay.
It connects. That's the beauty of utilizing the boulevard. And one of the issues is what we heard loud and clear from the communities was the amount of volume on Dorset.
Yes.
With this concept, we are hopeful that the volume of traffic will get dispersed between some of the other connections, such as
Onondaga.
Onondaga. Yep. I was just trying to zoom out so you can see it. The Onondaga and also Dorset. And utilizing these crossovers, you'll be able to get at these various, and also gates will remain as well. So you'd be able
Yes,
to,
that's
westbound traffic could go straight into gates.
great.
They could come down and enter in Dorset and use the service drive to get whatever north-south local connection that they were looking for, and then Onondaga as well. So that's really what we're trying to do, is disperse the traffic by getting rid of the direct access to Dorset
Correct. Good.
for that purpose.
And the lights are in up to the intersection at American Center for Mobility. The
Yes.
lights are in. And
Thank you for
then
bringing that up.
Yeah,
These are the not the traffic lights, but the street lights.
street lights.
So DTE contractor has installed phase 1 of the street lights. That was basically a project. Phase 1 was wired to kind of the township county line east and really light that corridor where two-way traffic is on the same road and no longer a boulevard there, east of wired. So the lighting was enhancing the safety and visibility. And then the plan is once we get the geometry approved by MDOT for the revisions at the intersections, we would go forward with a lighting design for the section that's on your screen, that we would do street lighting for US 12 all the way to 94 and then to the M17 intersection as well. And I would also include the Ford Boulevard intersection. So DT would put together a street lighting plan for that.
And I need to get more feedback, but I had been avoiding that area because avoiding it at night because it seems so dangerous to me. And since the lights have been on and I've driven at night, it's totally different. It's like a different area. I feel safe to drive with the lighting. I didn't think it would make that. I knew it would make some difference, but I didn't know it would make that big of a difference. It seems like people are not going as fast as they normally go, maybe because it's lit up. I don't know, but it is much safer with the lights.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear.
So Matt, it seems like there's a bulk of the traffic being shifted to the service drive. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, they're still going to use the 3 main entrance points. You have Gates, Dorset, and Onondaga. But yes, we're trying to better utilize that service drive to distribute traffic to the local network of streets, so that not all Dorset is going to carry the load, so to speak.
Right. So if someone is coming off of, say, Eugene Street or even Calder Street and they want to go west, they've got to go east before they can go west, though, right?
Yes. Yep. And that's, we call it our Michigan left, right? We're all too familiar with this style. It is a change to this area, but I think traffic could get accustomed, and that's why we're building more crossovers so that we can provide folks more options.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question, Matt, as I'm looking at this, and the same thing, I travel this often and it does seem safer, but I'm always concerned because there are a lot of pedestrians that cross over from the Willow Run neighborhood over towards the Ford Boulevard. I'm always amazed at the number of people that I see at lights trying to cross over. And hopefully that makes it safer for them. I don't know how many fatalities have been there or not been there. I know that there have been some. So I'm speaking about when they come from Ford Boulevard, the pedestrians then how will they come over? That's that new white strip right there that you're going back and forth with.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I will say, and I'm just going to show these just briefly, and these are just concepts of what potentially could happen.
Yeah.
But they put together a book, and is that changed on your screen as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So they put together a book with concepts about really highlighting the design focus, that pedestrian emphasis of access and safety and aesthetics, trying to drive that home and to really make it the drivers that go through this very aware. So using those landscaping design to highlight that need for improved safety. And you know, they've all had all kinds of concepts, ideas. So they're presenting these ideas to the township, and this is just one concept where they lay. They have a blow up. I think it's maybe on the next sheet. Yep, where they have these concepts and plantings and open space so you can see it. So these are just concepts, and again, it's really 100% up to the township and those residents that they put together on what concepts are going to move forward. Ultimately, the township is responsible for all the costs associated with maintenance moving forward, but the project will pick up the construction costs. So this is just another concept whereby they're using some different creative means in landscaping to create a sense of place, but also highlight the pedestrian use. So a little bit out of my element, but certainly a very interesting concept. So
Indeed. So I wondered if they would do crossovers or adding more traffic lights will certainly slow it down. As people come off of, I know as I come off of 94, I have to slow it down to, 45 or even 40. But I know as people come, they're trying to gauge those lights and, trying to make the switch over to Michigan Avenue or wherever else they're trying to make that switch over to.
yeah, utilizing the signals are going to be key. Obviously, we want to make it convenient. We're also proposing sidewalk along the service drive as well to try and connect all the side streets and connect the network for pedestrians as well. So that's part of the project. And then anything we can do to highlight and make drivers aware of that pedestrian element. That's the goal.
Thank you.
No problem.
I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Jamnik sounded the alarm on this stretch of road some years ago. And partly as a result of Commissioner Jamnik's concerns and emphasized urgency on doing something because of the pedestrians that you referred to, Commissioner Yamas, and the fatalities. I remember Ruth Ann saying this is just unacceptable, and we did not have the funding to do anything there. Then State Representative Ronnie Peterson managed to put together funding, $6 million, do I remember that right? To actually get this project underway. So I just want to remember, Ruth Ann, that you raised the flag and Peterson put the money together, and how many years have gone by, but you made a difference. So thanks for emphasizing the need in that stretch of road.
Good job. It's been dangerous for many years.
Yes.
Since they built it.
Yes.
Because it was intended as a freeway, and certainly it was perceived that the pedestrians were an irritation. Matt, question for you.
Yes, sir.
The service drive, which has made my stomach hurt for a great many years now, I see you still got there. Is it the current intention to continue that to be a two-way roadway? Yes.
We are not proposing any changes to the function of the service drive other than adding sidewalk
Right.
to it.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
other
you
questions
for
for
that
Matt
presentation.
on US 12 or any other projects? All right, thank you, Matt. Jim, I know that you had separately sent out a spreadsheet of projects as you are actively trying to wrap things up for the construction season as well. So we'll happily turn it over to you.
And as we're working to that end, we turned right around today and added more work. And we're delighted about that. Thank you, commissioners, for approving agreements with Augusta Township and for relatively small scope drainage improvement on Liss Road, and also for some additional limestone resurfacing on Liss Road. And in addition, our District 2 crew, which performs our crack sealing countywide, most of the crack sealings in the urban area of Pittsfield, Ypsi Township, was so efficient this year that we left money on the table. Our estimates are largely time and materials, and they were able to accomplish their quality work in less time. And so we were able to present that to Ypsilanti Township and gain their support to do some additional preventive maintenance, i.e. crack sealing on well-deserving residential streets in their community. And they had also carried over a sum of matching funds for next year, which is fine, absolutely permissible, and we were able to apply that. So essentially split the cost of the additional crack sealing. So I thank the board for your support, and we're looking forward to those job numbers here probably tomorrow so we can get that work scheduled and underway. Yes, to Cheryl's point, provided an update. We're excited. We see the end in sight. We still have a number of projects, a diverse number of projects to accomplish, and we will accomplish those. That work's ongoing as we speak. And I'm just very proud of our workforce, very pleased with our contractors' responsiveness and professionalism, and we've made a tremendous difference this summer. It's really been an enormous program, while at the same time managing safety under a health pandemic. So my hat's off to the board for your support, to our local communities for helping us, and to our workforce for all the work that they've done. I'm pleased to report that we've taken delivery of all of our salt, our pre-fill order. We have adequate supply on hand for the beginning of the winter, and the 1st of December we'll be able to order more as necessary. We've got about 3 days remaining on a few local road limestone resurfacing projects, and that'll certainly be accomplished here most likely this month. One of those is the surfacing of the Trinkley Road hill cut that this board is partnering with Lima Township on, and Matt has informed me that the contractor is underway as of yesterday, and we'll be able to move in there and put the limestone surface on that new road once the contractor's completed its earthwork. In dry run, and I speak of dry run, I'm talking about winter maintenance preparations. We are doing things a little differently this year because of the pandemic, wanting to maintain distance, minimize congregation in the garages. So instead of scheduling one of the 8 crews to do all of that work in facility within 1 week, and then it culminates in inspections of that equipment, we've permitted the foreman to spread that out over about a 6-week period. And so we have 1, 2, 3 employees performing that work, and then we inspect it as the work is accomplished. And we're finding that to work very well under the circumstances. With that, we have the staff report for the last period, pages 83 through 89, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have of me or operations.
I believe Commissioner Doug Fuller had inquired about the internet connection at the Manchester Yard.
I would defer to Mr. Ackerman
Right.
on that question when we get to his report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But that's a nice segue, Barb, unless we have other questions for Jim.
I'm just really impressed with that huge list that we don't get in our hot little hands anymore, Jim. You send it to us virtually, of all the projects. And it feels as though the organization did not miss a beat with the pandemic, that all of the projects stayed in motion, people adapted as needed. You mentioned that we've stayed healthy, that there haven't been positive COVID diagnoses, that we don't have accidents this year, knock on wood. I can't say enough about how this organization pivoted from business as usual to new business and just kept right on buzzing along. So great work to everybody involved. The culture here is kind of magical when you look at what could have gone off the rails in the last 6 months and did not. So
Thank
great
you
work,
for those.
everybody.
Thank you. It is truly a team effort. We get this done together, and I look at the magnitude of that program at the onset, usually May, and I must admit, my head, can we do this? And really reflect further on the caliber of personnel in this organization, and I quickly answer my own question. Yeah, we can do this. And as you can see, we've added to the program, and we have emergencies that come up. Culverts fail, we have road issues, and we throw that in there too. And the workforce steps up, takes us very seriously, takes a lot of pride in the effort. We've got great contractors, and we get it done together.
It's just been
I'd
amazing.
like to echo what Jim said. We are blessed with an amazing workforce, and every single person here has contributed to be able to get done what we have been able to get done this year. And in addition to just simply surviving a pandemic, we've had a huge year. I mean, whether it's our operations staff, whether it's our engineering staff, whether it's the rest of us who are supporting those who are out in the field, it has been a tremendous year, a tremendous amount of work that has been accomplished across the board. And I think that does demonstrate the commitment and the work ethic of the people who work here. And we're blessed. And we've also been blessed with good weather, and we've been blessed with good health. And I pray that it stays that way, absolutely. But we do have tremendous people, and we are very, very grateful each and every day to those people as they come in and they do what they need to do.
And Dan, your department too. I don't want you to feel like you're the orphan out there, but all
Well,
this
like
work
Cheryl
has
said,
to be,
we kind of
it
support
has
everybody.
to be paid for. Yeah, it has to be paid for and invoiced and tracked and reported and oh my
All the
Lord.
work that's being done has to flow through finance at some point, and certainly IT as well as to support everybody being able to communicate. And so we know we're not lost, and HR as well. I know Nicole's on here, so it's a team effort.
So I do want to say Jim gave me a lesson in crack seal because I wanted to know what it was, and helped me understand some of resurfacing and utility work. There was some utility work done on Textile Road because I travel that road and the roundabout around Stony Creek. And so I want to thank them for that and where I might go when I see what I think that they it's like, who messed up our great road? Hadn't been down it like in about 2 weeks. And I'm like, what the heck, what's this speed bump here? So thank you, Jim, for helping me understand all of that and the chip seal process and the crack seal process, because I've been writing down roads to see, because it indeed, that chip seal, that whole resurfacing of the road and how we do it has made great improvements. It seems like so many I see all over, and it's like, wow, the roads are looking really good, really so much better than what they have for a long time. So thank you, Jim, for doing that for me.
Well, thank you for all that. Much appreciated. Dan, if you want to start with IT, since there are already some questions there, and then follow up. I know that we gave an MTF update as well in the
Sure.
board packet.
So Doug, I know you had a few questions. The first one was around telecommuting, I believe. And certainly when the pandemic happened, we had more staff than ever that were working from home. And I thought that transition with the assistance of Chris Quinter, our IT manager, as well as Dominant, our managed service provider, you know, there's going to be some hiccups, but I feel like they were minor. And I feel we've been able to operate at a high level, as some of you have already been alluding to. In my workings with some other governmental agencies, I won't mention which ones, but there's been some challenges that the other agencies have been experiencing, and certainly we may not be as efficient, but you know, when is it almost used as an excuse? So, you know, I've been really proud that, you know, for instance, payroll, we've been able to pay our employees timely and accurately. Accounts payable, the same thing, and we're still, Barb, getting more vendors to sign up so we can pay them via ACH. So, you know, all that is working well. And obviously there are some employees that have been reporting to the office, but really trying to manage what county health is saying is a safe level of capacity with all the needs that our employees have, and finding that balance. And Doug, so I don't know if the telecommuting question you had is what the future holds. Is that what you were alluding to?
Yes, short story.
You know, certainly some of that is up to, you know, where this pandemic goes. Is there a second wave? When is it safe to bring everybody back into the office? You know, from my standpoint, as far as people working from home, like I said, we've been able to work, function at a high level. And, you know, prior to that, we really didn't know, do we have all the tools in place? Do we have proper training? You know, how that would work. So, you know, certainly whatever the future holds with regards to, you know, directives from county health, from the state of Michigan, you know, I think we can handle that. And some of it too, of course, Cheryl is, we take her lead as well, as far as, you know, what makes sense, a safety level from an efficiency level. You know, can we cover the phones properly? You know, just trying to make sure that all the work is getting done. So I don't know if that answers your question, Doug.
Well, we have done remarkably well at any number of things. As I frequently tell people, this may or may not be the best road commission in Michigan, but it's certainly one of the best three at anything that we do. So, and IT is one of them. And working remotely is another one, which, as you alluded, there are several agencies geographically around us that don't seem to have quite gotten a handle on this yet. So, and then the other thing that among other things that I caught my eye in your IT report was under the category of outside yards, we upgraded the internet connection at Manchester. I didn't even know that was possible. So what did we do?
Well, again, Chris Quinter is a miracle worker. And I just want to say that Chris and I, we both feel that regardless if you're at the main administrative building, if you're at the Southeast Service Center or Manchester, I've had several conversations with Rourke, our foreman there. Everybody's issues are equally important. And just because you're not at the main yard doesn't mean you're forgotten. And Chris has done such a good job looking at internet connectivity, wireless access points, hardware, software, equally throughout our organization at all the locations. And, you know, Manchester was an area that he was able to improve that connectivity. On September 24th, we upgraded our internet connection there. And so we hope it's more reliable and quicker. And so far, the feedback has been just that. You know, certainly we want to give it a period of time to make sure that that's still the case. There's also an MDOT tower at that location that he worked with MDOT to get that upgraded as well. And it seems to be going pretty smoothly. And Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything?
Yeah, if I could. Good afternoon, everyone. What we had figured out in working with John Miles, who works with MDOT, at the main yard and in Manchester, we have a tower at both locations that works somehow with GPS. I'm not exactly familiar with how that works. I don't know if maybe Matt can comment more on that if you have questions, or I'm sure John Miles can, but essentially it works with GPS around the county. And we realized that we were using Comcast cable internet into the building at Manchester to support our infrastructure there, but this tower had been using a satellite internet called Air Advantage, which I had never even heard of. So we disconnected that Air Advantage from that tower and upgraded our Comcast service to add an extra public IP so that we could put the tower on our Comcast connection out there. So now we've got our infrastructure and that tower both using our Comcast connection, and we were able to cancel our subscription to that Air Advantage. It didn't really it may have saved us $20 or so a month, but that's going to be a much more stable connection for the guys at MDOT that are using that tower.
Okay.
So again, just another example, we're looking anywhere we can to improve connectivity. I mean, it's just so important. It seems like every day we rely on technology more and more to get the job done, especially, of course, in this environment, but any environment. So we just want to make sure we have the best systems in place wherever we can. Any other questions on that at all? Okay,
Not on that, but I've got one about moving the Fuel Master to the cloud. What's the inherent advantage there?
So the advantage there would be that you get rid of some hardware.
Okay.
And any upgrades are, whenever there's an upgrade, it takes staff some time to accomplish it.
Right.
Chris's time, there's downtime. So when it's in the cloud, those upgrades are a little more seamlessly. And I believe it also helps Jeff Mann with administering it as well. So it makes it a little bit easier for him. But there is a cost associated with it, which of course is one of those things you have to weigh, right? So.
Yeah.
Dan, can I jump in on that a little bit as well?
Of course.
He's exactly right. It is a big burden on IT as well as Jeff Mann when it does come time for those upgrades. Those upgrades typically take 8+ hours to do. We've done 3 in my time here, and they've both taken 2 days to complete, and then the duration of the week to work out any kinks or issues. And that's because we have on-site equipment. That would also reduce the need for SQL licensing, which we have on our database server up in the IT room. So the fact that the cloud service would have everything on their server, Jeff, Warren, Jim, whoever accesses that fuel database can access that from anywhere. They can pull it up on their phone, they can pull it up on their laptop. As long as they have an internet connection, they're able to get to it. And it also provides a lot better reporting tools, a lot more features than what our current system has. And it's just more of a reliable system. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Good job on the IT. You do a great job. What do we have in ways of redundancy? Because the one thing I do know is when you're relying solely on towers and a system goes down, be it a power outage or whatever, is there any redundancy you have set up, even for the main yard? Is there a copper or an optical circle around the main server?
Hey, Chris, would you like to take that? Do you mind?
Sure. So we just switched the main yard, Gloria, to Comcast fiber. Ideally, at some point, we would like to get another ISP in here, maybe an AT&T or someone that's not Comcast, in an event of a failure. I think that's probably a ways down the road, though. As far as redundancy, we did this year install a second firewall at the main yard. So if the main one goes down, it'll kick over to that second firewall and we should remain up. We also maintain our backups every evening around 10 or 11 o'clock. It kicks off the task and it copies all of our data from all of our file servers over to our disaster recovery location at the Southeast Service Center. So if something were to happen in the room here at the main yard, we could pull the box from the Southeast, plug it in here at the main yard and have our data at least from the day before.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Gloria, one of the things that we've shared is it's not a full-blown disaster recovery. Even though we have all-site backups, it still may take some doing in order for everybody to be up and running. So that's one of the things that we'd like to explore possibly next year, is have a full-blown disaster recovery, a replica at, say, our Southeast Service Center. And if there were an issue at the main yard, our employees could either report there or use a server there and basically plug and play, which is the goal in a major disaster, that you can just be up and running immediately. So, and certainly there's, you know, again, another cost associated with that, but you know, it's definitely something that Chris and I would like the board to consider for next year.
And Commissioner, if any of the commissioners would like to stop in at any time, I'm more than happy to show you the room and how we're set up currently and what the procedure is for redundancy and how we're currently working. I know I'm a very visual person, so sometimes those things are a little easier to see in person than kind of hear it explained. So I'm in about half the week right now. So if you'd ever like to stop in, I'm more than happy to show you around.
Thank you. So I just have one more thing. Given our new, and it may be for you, Cheryl, more than it is for Dan or anybody else. I did see in yard one, they removed the tables and chairs and benches from the driver's break room and parking garage. Is that due to the COVID restrictions? Are people not allowed one at a time, or have we restricted them totally from all the buildings? And on to that question, the new CDC discoveries and recommendations came out today, and they've decided 6 feet is not good enough. 10 feet is what's considered that needs to be, along with air filtration systems in an enclosed area. So I'm thinking about the offices there. So that's kind of my question, if
Sure.
how that's going to impact us.
I have not seen the new CDC guidance, so happy to take a look at that. Like I said, we were already starting to take a look at our preparedness and response plan to make sure it was current. So if there's additional guidance that has now come out, we will need to take a look and see how that applies to our organization. When we originally started bringing people back more from an office standpoint, we were looking at occupancy limits on things like the lunchroom and the elevator and various places, common spaces, for exactly that point, trying to keep people so appropriately social distanced. And we have maximum occupancy on a lot of those spaces. Up until now, we have had most of our field staff have been reporting basically from their personal vehicles to their county vehicles, and all timekeeping and materials records have been inputted basically into the system by their direct supervisor, which has become very time consuming for the individual supervisors. And so we've been taking a look at with where we were at with restrictions, did it make sense to start having at least drivers starting to put that information into the system themselves, because at least it takes that responsibility other than checking it away from the supervisors. But if we were going to do that, we wanted to make sure we had appropriate protocols in place, because at some level we're encouraging staff now to come into the building. So in the main yard, we removed any incentive to linger, which I hate to say, again, knowing how important, I mean, we really do want to have that, but we can't. So that is part of why the tables were reconfigured or removed, chairs were removed, some of the benches were removed so that they can come in. We will have appropriate protocols as far as individual assignments to kiosks, so they won't just use whatever kiosk is most convenient. They would be assigned a kiosk. There will be sanitation expectations with respect to hand sanitizers, additional cleaning by our cleaning crew of those stations, trying to, again, minimize those common or cleaning of those common touch points. So that's what you're seeing in place there as we are trying to move toward that. We do also realize that as we're moving into the winter months and the fact that we need to be able to get those vehicles out on the road as soon as possible when people are either coming in at the beginning of shift or if we have a call-in situation, the vehicles which have currently been parked outside are going to have to be brought into the garage. So we're also examining just how that's going to work, because right now the garage is wide open, so social distancing is much easier. Once we start bringing all those very large vehicles in, we're going to have to make sure that those protocols are being followed. And now if they've changed, we need to make sure that whatever the current guidance is in place, that is, we're following it.
Yeah, and I suspect that air filtration systems are what they're calling for. But my experience is being a technician in a truck, it's kind of your only haven in the wintertime, and the break room. So it, although I understand you keep from people coming in there, but it seems to me that you could still have one chair, you know, because the other thing is, like, when you're coming in to either gather equipment or do someplace else out of your vehicle, you need someplace to just kind of land your stuff. But if you're discouraging that, I get that.
Yeah, it's that balance, and there will be a handful of chairs in there because you do need to sit to actually put your time in for the kiosk. So again, we're just attempting to balance. The foreman's office is right there, so that at least there can be some visual monitoring to make sure that whoever is, you know, I mean, that they are social distancing and we have the appropriate number of people in those spaces as well. So it really is going to be a balance of trying to make sure people's needs are met, because they do need to be able to accomplish their jobs and efficiently. And that's why we're re-examining the process of how we're doing our time and records keeping. But we also need to keep them safe. We keep saying time and time again, this is our most important resource. We value this resource. We need to keep these, first of all, we care. And second of all, we need to keep this resource healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I certainly understand that. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Anything else related to IT? If not, I'll just cover finance real quickly. If you go to the last page of your packet, the Michigan Transportation Funds for August were received, and lo and behold, they were up 20% in 2020 compared to 19. That set off a flurry of emails from my counterparts across the state saying, hey, we got 18%, what did you get? We got 20% increase. So again, continues to surprise, and just, you know, looking at the trend, there is no trend. Certainly we'll take it anytime it's an increase. And the state did provide a nice report that Cheryl and I have been looking at that compares the August gas tax and license and registration fees to the previous year. So it's a monthly report comparing the 2 years. And both the gas tax and the license and registration fees were up in 2020 compared to 19. So who knew? But you know, certainly we'll take it. It bodes well again for our budget. So we don't want to make any drastic changes because September could be down 30%. We don't know, but you know, for now we'll take it. One other thing with regards to Michigan Transportation Funds I wanted to share, in case of a government shutdown for the state of Michigan, MDOT provided the August transportation funds a little bit earlier. So if there was a shutdown, it wouldn't hold that up. So we certainly appreciated them doing that. They may have done it other years, or maybe they haven't, and we experienced a shutdown, and that's why now they did that for us. So, you know, certainly we appreciated that they were recognizing the fact that they wanted to get us these funds should a shutdown occur. So, you know, it's nice when they actually want to work with us a little bit. So any questions on the Michigan Transportation Funds? And then beyond that, we're quickly coming into budget season. In the next few weeks, I'll be meeting with the department heads. We'll be talking about both the 2020 budget as well as 2021. And we'll be sharing that with the commissioners at a working session in November. With that, if there's any other questions for me.
Dan, what accounts for the increase that we saw for 2020?
For August,
Yes.
both the gas tax and the license and registration fees were up when compared to the previous year for August.
Okay,
So I guess people are driving more and purchasing more vehicles, which we knew about the purchasing vehicles, but the gas tax was actually also up in August of 20.
yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for staff? All right.
With that, are we ready to move into closed session? Sure.
We are. Mr. Troika is with us.
Could I just point out that Commissioner Jamnik is with us now, and she didn't have an opportunity earlier to comment, Mr. Chairman?
Fine. Ruth Ann, do you have something you'd like to comment on?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you for what you're doing. Safety and looking at what's happening here in Ypsilanti Township. I know you're taking care of the whole county, but it's nice to hear a lot about what you're doing here in Washtenaw County in Ypsilanti Township. It's important to us. We keep growing over here with people in subdivisions and all that kinds of stuff, and I just want you to know I appreciate that. And I appreciate you keeping me in the loop.
Quite welcome. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to have to ask all the people not necessary for the upcoming closed session to leave us virtually. Mr. Troika, are you there with us?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Would you mind suggesting a motion for us to act on to move into a closed session for hearing about legal update on one of our intersections?
So the motion needs to come from one of you, and
Right.
one of you should move to go to executive session because we're discussing settlement of potential pending litigation as well as real estate matters, and this should be made pursuant to Section 7 and 8 of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. Commissioner Green, would you be willing or interested in making such a motion?
Yes, I would. Mr.
Please
Chairman,
do.
I move that we go into executive session, and that would be a closed session to discuss litigation in compliance with Section 7 and 8 of the Open Meetings Act.
Could I have a motion for support?
I support.
Thank you. Commissioner Fuller.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas.
Yes.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes.
And Commissioner Doug Fuller votes yes as well. We are now in an executive session. Have we gotten everyone blocked off and back in open session? I would entertain a motion to adjourn if other commissioners are inclined.
So moved.
Support.
Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Doug Fuller votes yes. We are adjourned, and thank you for a useful and successful meeting.